Have you ever known someone who seems stuck in a perpetual state of adolescence, someone who just can't or won't grow up? Maybe it's a friend, a coworker, or even a family member. You sense a constant tug of war. Inside them they long for freedom from adult responsibilities, yet somehow can't find genuine fulfillment in life. This isn't just a quirk of character. According to the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, there's an entire archetype dedicated to this concept, the Puer Aeternus, or the eternal boy, what many of us today refer to as the man-child. In this series, we're diving into what that really means, why it happens, and how Jungian psychology provides a path toward genuine growth. So let's begin our exploration by understanding the roots of the man-child archetype and why it's more complex than just refusing to act your age. Have you ever encountered someone who fits the man-child description, or do you see any part of it in yourself? Share in the comments by writing, "I see it," along with a brief story or reflection. When we talk about the man-child, a certain image often springs to mind: a grown individual who still behaves like a carefree teenager, perpetually sidestepping the responsibilities and realities that come with adult life. This notion has roots in a concept introduced by Carl Jung, who termed it the Puer Aeternus, Latin for eternal boy. Understanding this archetype means looking past mere immaturity to examine the deeper psychological patterns at play. By exploring the defining traits of the eternal boy mentality, its place in Jung's theory of archetypes, and how it manifests in everyday life, we can begin to appreciate the complexity behind a pattern that can all too easily be dismissed as laziness or lack of motivation. The eternal boy mentality. At its core, the eternal boy mentality is one that clings fiercely to the perceived freedom and lack of obligations associated with childhood. Responsibilities such as maintaining a steady job, paying bills, or nurturing meaningful relationships are often seen as intolerably restrictive barriers to self-expression and unencumbered joy. This perspective isn't merely about liking fun or playful activities, rather, it's an unwillingness or inability to integrate adult duties into one's life. In many cases, the man-child will choose leisure over work, personal gratification over shared duties, and fleeting pleasures over long-term goals. While this attitude can appear simply self-indulgent, there's often a subconscious motive at play: fear. On some level, the man-child may be deeply afraid of failure, judgment, or disappointment. By remaining in a state of extended adolescence, he can skirt the risks inherent in committing to adulthood's challenges. After all, if you never step into the arena, you never have to face the possibility of losing. Yet the cost of avoiding these risks can be high, leading to chronic stagnation, restless dissatisfaction, and strained relationships with those who expect and sometimes need more mature behavior. Jung's archetypal perspective. Carl Jung's concept of archetypes refers to universal symbols and patterns that populate the collective unconscious. These archetypes form the bedrock of human experience, influencing the way we think, feel, and behave across cultures and time periods. The Puer Aeternus stands as one such archetype, representing the motif of eternal youth, a figure resistant to the natural progression into adulthood. In mythological and literary traditions, eternal youth can be seductive. It implies freedom from aging, from responsibility, and from the inevitable sorrows of growing older. But in psychological terms, remaining an eternal boy indicates an unresolved developmental phase. Jung believed that each stage of life offers opportunities to integrate various parts of the psyche, including the capacity for responsibility, empathy, and long-term planning. When these lessons are resisted or avoided, emotional and psychological growth stalls. The Puer archetype then exerts a strong influence, luring the individual back to a fantasy of consequence-free living, instead of propelling them toward meaningful adult roles. From Jung's point of view, the greatest danger is that the individual becomes arrested at this phase, neglecting to engage fully in life's deeper demands and missing the unique rewards that come from stepping up to adult challenges. This kind of unresolved psychological state can lead to chronic immaturity, dependency on others, and a profound lack of self-awareness, since true self-understanding often arises when we confront real-world tests and learn from them. Common manifestations. To see how the man-child archetype operates day to day, we need only look at the patterns of behavior that characterize the eternal boy mentality. While these can vary greatly depending on personal background and cultural context, several themes frequently emerge. Obsessive escapism. The man-child may immerse himself in games, social media, or binge-watching TV series to avoid tasks that require focus and perseverance. These activities provide immediate gratification and shelter him from the stress of deadlines, the discomfort of professional setbacks, and the emotional stakes of genuine relationships. Avoiding commitments. Relationships and careers often demand long-term dedication. The man-child finds this level of responsibility stifling, leading him to cycle through casual romances or switch jobs whenever the novelty wears off. Whether it's a fear of boredom, fear of failure, or fear of losing personal freedom, long-term commitments become objects of avoidance. Financial irresponsibility. Paying bills, saving for the future, or budgeting effectively can be daunting tasks for someone who's used to immediate pleasures. Impulse spending on hobbies and non-essentials is common, sometimes leaving the man-child in perpetual debt or reliant on family and friends for financial bailouts. Dependency on family. It's not unusual for the man-child to live at home longer than his peers or rely on parents to provide financial and emotional support well into adulthood. This arrangement can feel safer than striking out on his own, but it often prolongs the postponement of crucial life skills and emotional growth. Grandiose dreams with little follow-through. Eternally youthful individuals sometimes harbor big aspirations, becoming a famous musician, writing a best-selling novel, or starting a groundbreaking business. However, the commitment needed to realize these dreams is often lacking. Plans remain in the realm of fantasy, untainted by the challenges of execution. Emotional volatility. Adulthood demands emotional regulation, but the man-child may react to stress or criticism with outbursts or sulking, reflecting a level of emotional reactivity more common to adolescence than adulthood. This volatility can strain relationships and further reinforce feelings of isolation. Beyond immaturity. Taken together, these behaviors paint a picture of someone who struggles to move past a deep-seated ambivalence about growing up. The man-child archetype isn't merely a sign of irresponsibility, it can signal a psychological stall point, where the promise of never-ending youth is more alluring than the reality of imperfect but necessary adulthood. Jung's Puer Aeternus highlights the fact that clinging to perpetual boyhood ultimately limits personal fulfillment. Recognizing these patterns is an essential first step. By understanding why the man-child archetype exists and how it manifests, both those who identify with it and those who care about them can better appreciate the underlying complexities. It's not just about telling someone to grow up, it's about guiding them toward the deeper self-awareness and courage required to transcend the eternal boy stage. In the next parts, we'll look at how fear, avoidance, and internal conflict feed into this behavior, and how Carl Jung's process of individuation offers a way out of Neverland. Why would a grown individual cling to the realm of childhood, avoiding adult responsibilities at every turn? It's easy to dismiss the man-child as simply lazy or selfish, but Carl Jung's insights point to deeper psychological forces at play. In this section, we'll examine three core dynamics that often drive the man-child phenomenon: fear and avoidance, internal conflict, and the constant battle between self-indulgence and responsibility. Fear and avoidance. At the heart of much man-child behavior lies a profound sense of fear. Specifically, there's an underlying dread of failure, rejection, or being exposed as inadequate. In many cases, this fear operates beneath conscious awareness, shaping choices and actions without the individual fully realizing its presence. For someone who sees adulthood as a gauntlet of potential judgments, be it from employers, romantic partners, or even society at large, remaining in a childlike state can feel like a shield. If he never tries, he never has to face the humiliation of falling short. Instead, escapism provides a safe haven. Video games, fantasy novels, or other immersive hobbies become sanctuaries from the risks and uncertainties of real life. The result is a cycle of avoidance, fleeing from possibility in exchange for the illusion of security. Internal conflict. Carl Jung's theory highlights the tension between the conscious and unconscious aspects of the psyche, and this tug-of-war is especially pronounced in the man-child archetype. Consciously, the individual may crave freedom, a life unfettered by responsibilities, rules, or the mundane routines of adulthood. Yet unconsciously, there exists a deep pull toward growth and maturity, a natural psychological drive to integrate all parts of oneself and achieve wholeness. This clash creates a persistent restlessness. On one hand, the man-child revels in his carefree existence, but on the other, he may sense a nagging dissatisfaction, an unspoken awareness that he is not living up to his potential. Jungian psychology frames this inner struggle as a natural part of individuation, wherein one must eventually reconcile both the desire for boundless possibility and the necessity of facing real-world limitations. Self-indulgence vs. responsibility. Another core issue is the tension between self-indulgence and adult accountability. In childhood, immediate gratification often rules the day. Fun, treats, and playtime are mainstays. As we age, we learn that life requires balance. The gratification of personal desires must coexist with a willingness to shoulder responsibilities, whether financial, relational, or societal. The man-child, however, resists accepting this balance. He may prioritize hobbies over work, short-term pleasure over long-term well-being, and personal enjoyment over relational harmony. While this approach might feel liberating in the moment, it often leads to ongoing instability, job turnover, strained relationships, and financial stress, each of which reinforces the defensive position that the adult world is too burdensome or hostile. Ultimately, these root causes fear and avoidance, internal conflict, and the pull between self-indulgence and responsibility feed into one another, creating a trap that can be difficult to escape. By recognizing these drivers, we gain a clearer understanding of why some individuals remain stuck in a state of perpetual boyhood. In the next part, we'll explore how Jungian psychology offers a pathway to growth, offering strategies for integrating the best of both worlds, preserving childlike wonder while embracing the fulfillment that adult life can bring. Understanding the man-child archetype is only half the journey. The more challenging task lies in figuring out how to move beyond it. In Carl Jung's framework, the key to resolving any stalled developmental stage, like the Puer Aeternus, lies in individuation. Individuation is the process through which we integrate all dimensions of the self, ultimately achieving a more complete, authentic, and psychologically balanced identity. By confronting the shadow and learning to take genuine responsibility, the man-child can begin transforming his perpetual boyhood into mature adulthood. Individuation, as described by Jung, is the gradual process of uniting the conscious and unconscious aspects of our psyche. It involves making the unknown parts of ourselves known, acknowledging feelings, impulses, and potentials that we might have repressed or dismissed. This unification doesn't erase our childhood essence, but rather helps it evolve into a form that can coexist with adult responsibilities. When done effectively, individuation fosters self-awareness, empathy for others, and a sense of purpose. For the man-child, individuation might initially sound intimidating. He has often spent years or even decades avoiding anything that restricts his freedom or challenges his self-image. But the payoff is substantial. Individuation can bring about a newfound sense of stability, meaningful connection with others, and a deeper appreciation for life's complexities. A childlike wonder at the world doesn't vanish. Instead, it's harnessed in a healthier way, balanced by the wisdom and resilience that come with embracing the challenges of adulthood. Confronting the shadow. A critical step in individuation is confronting the shadow. The shadow, in Jungian psychology, consists of traits and impulses that we deny, hide, or refuse to acknowledge, often because they clash with our idealized self-image. For the man-child, this shadow might include deeply rooted fears of failure or rejection, anger at perceived expectations, or shame about not measuring up to peers who seem to have figured it all out. Avoidance becomes the default strategy. But that only keeps these fears buried rather than resolved. Bringing the shadow to light requires courage and self-honesty. For instance, the man-child might admit that he has avoided pursuing a stable career not simply because he loves his current carefree lifestyle, but because deep down he's terrified of being deemed incompetent or ordinary. By articulating these worries, he can begin to see how they shape his behavior. Therapy, journaling, and honest conversations with trusted friends or mentors can be invaluable in this regard, offering a safe space to explore and understand one's inner landscape. Confronting the shadow also means learning to tolerate discomfort. When our insecurities rise to the surface, it's tempting to retreat into old, comforting habits, hours of gaming, binge watching, or endlessly scrolling social media. The more we resist that pull, the more capacity we develop to handle life's difficulties in a mature way. As Jung noted, the goal is not to destroy or eliminate these hidden parts of ourselves, but to integrate them. We learn to channel the energy that once fueled our fears into constructive action. Taking responsibility. Individuation isn't just an internal shift, it manifests through concrete changes in behavior, particularly regarding responsibility. Adulthood inevitably includes obligations to oneself, to loved ones, and to society. While the man-child archetype sees these obligations as stifling constraints, Jungian psychology reframes them as pathways to self-discovery. By showing up reliably for others, whether that means paying bills on time, fostering open communication in relationships, or contributing to a household, the individual steps out of an isolated, self-centered bubble. In doing so, he discovers the rewards of interdependence, genuine respect from peers, deeper emotional bonds, and the satisfaction of being a supportive presence in someone else's life. Accountability is at the heart of this process. When we say we'll do something, we do it. When we make a mistake, we own up to it. For the eternal boy, learning accountability can be a major adjustment. It goes beyond just marking tasks off a checklist. It involves recognizing how our choices affect others. Embracing this mindset fosters empathy, a quality often underdeveloped in those who prioritize their own comfort above all else. Through empathy, the man-child begins to see that a truly fulfilling life involves both personal enjoyment and responsible participation in a broader community. In parallel, discovering a sense of purpose can catalyze maturity. Instead of drifting from one excitement to the next, the individual commits to goals that transcend fleeting gratification. Perhaps he channels his creative energy into writing, painting, or starting a small business. Maybe he invests time in volunteer work or mentoring those who need guidance. The specific pursuit matters less than the orientation itself, moving from a purely consumption-based lifestyle to one that contributes something meaningful to the world. This shift doesn't erase the joy of playful activities, it situates them within a life that feels coherent and purposeful. Integrating childlike wonder with adult maturity. The beauty of individuation lies in its holistic nature. It doesn't require discarding the child within. Far from it. What it does demand is a willingness to evolve, to incorporate the spontaneity, creativity, and wide-eyed wonder of childhood into the competence and stability of adulthood. The result is a life that balances the spark of youth with the grounded realism necessary for personal growth and lasting relationships. For the man-child, this journey means moving through a series of reckonings, facing what he fears, owning what he's avoided, and stepping into the realities of adult life. While challenging, the reward is a fuller, more authentic existence, one where joy is enriched by commitment and freedom is tempered by responsibility. As Jung would argue, each aspect of our psyche has a place. The task is to align them in such a way that we become who we truly are, rather than remain in a half-formed state. Individuation ultimately leads to a richer, more nuanced experience of life, guiding the eternal boy into the realm of a balanced, self-aware adult. One of the greatest misconceptions about growing up is that it requires abandoning the spark of childlike wonder. People often assume that adulthood is strictly about responsibilities, bills, career goals, and social obligations, while childhood is the realm of imagination and play. In reality, a truly fulfilling life integrates both. In this section, we'll look at the positive qualities of childlike curiosity, explore how to keep that spirit alive alongside adulthood's demands, and consider how mature individuals strike a harmonious balance. Positive childlike qualities. I think back to when you were a child. Everything seemed fresh and exciting. Each day held the promise of discovery, and even ordinary tasks could feel like small adventures. It's easy to lose that mindset as we age, but these youthful traits can profoundly enrich our adult lives. Qualities like creativity, spontaneity, and a sense of wonder encourage us to think outside the box, embrace new experiences, and remain open to life's hidden possibilities. Creativity, childlike imagination fuels innovation. Whether it's composing music, painting a mural, or finding novel solutions to everyday problems, tapping into creativity can make life more dynamic and fulfilling. Spontaneity. Adults often get bogged down by routines and careful planning. While structure can be beneficial, a little spontaneity keeps life from becoming monotonous. It reminds us to live in the moment and be flexible when plans inevitably change. Wonder. Seeing the world through a curious lens can help us appreciate small details: a sunrise, a bird's song, or the satisfying crunch of fallen leaves underfoot. Wonder fosters gratitude, helping us find joy even amid challenges. These childlike qualities are not only compatible with adulthood, they can be essential tools for thriving in an ever-changing world. When the spirit of youthfulness is integrated into adult responsibilities, it sparks creativity at work, encourages adaptability in relationships, and supports emotional resilience when confronted with life's setbacks. A healthy integration. The central challenge is to preserve these beneficial traits without regressing into immaturity. For instance, someone who values spontaneity might still keep a flexible yet structured schedule. A person who cherishes creativity can find ways to express it both in professional settings and personal hobbies. Maintaining a sense of wonder doesn't mean ignoring responsibilities, it means approaching them with an open mind and a willingness to learn. Here are a few practical strategies for fostering healthy integration. Set boundaries around play, dedicate time to engage in activities that awaken your inner child like painting, dancing, or reading fantasy novels, but balance it with your daily obligations. Putting these playful moments in your schedule can transform them into mindful, rewarding breaks rather than endless distractions. Adopt a beginner's mindset. In many spiritual and psychological traditions, the beginner's mind refers to approaching each situation as though you're seeing it for the first time. This practice encourages curiosity, allowing you to discover new insights in familiar tasks, whether you're cooking dinner or working through a complex project. Practice mindful responsibility. When managing responsibilities, paying bills, meeting deadlines, or caring for loved ones, do it with self-awareness. Ask yourself what you can learn from each experience and look for ways to bring creativity or a sense of fun to routine tasks. Cultivate playful relationships. Surround yourself with individuals who support your efforts to remain both responsible and playful. Engaging in lighthearted social interactions can deepen friendships and romantic connections, keeping relationships fresh and genuinely enjoyable. Achieving harmony. Ultimately, balancing childhood wonder with adult maturity isn't an all-or-nothing proposition. Many highly functional, contented adults integrate youthful zest into their daily lives without shirking responsibilities. For them, work can be both serious and enjoyable. Personal relationships can be both stable and whimsical. Healthy individuals who merge these worlds typically exhibit a few common traits. Adaptability. They flow between structured tasks and spontaneous moments, adjusting to the demands of the situation. Emotional resilience. By remaining curious and open-minded, they can handle stress and setbacks with a flexible, optimistic approach. Deep gratitude. Their appreciation for life's small miracles keeps them grounded, while their sense of duty guides them to meet obligations with integrity. In the end, fostering this harmony means recognizing that growing older doesn't have to mean abandoning the energetic, imaginative aspects of who you are. Rather, it's about weaving them into a broader tapestry of adult responsibilities and relationships. By doing so, the once eternal boy can evolve into a fully realized individual who honors his childlike spirit while embracing the profound rewards of maturity. We've journeyed through the core elements of Carl Jung's Puer Aeternus, or man-child archetype, highlighting how deep-rooted fears, avoidance, and a conflicted psyche can trap someone in perpetual boyhood. We explored how creativity, spontaneity, and wonder traits often associated with childhood can enrich adult life when balanced by responsibility and accountability. Jung's concept of individuation provides a guiding framework, inviting the man-child to confront the shadow, integrate the various aspects of self, and step into genuine maturity. It's a process that requires self-reflection, courage, and a willingness to embrace both the joys and burdens of adulthood. Ultimately, growth demands facing reality, acknowledging our limitations, and daring to move beyond our comfort zones. Although it can feel daunting, the rewards are immeasurable: richer relationships, a stronger sense of purpose, and the ability to maintain a childlike spark without being held back by childish fears. By embracing both wonder and responsibility, we can step out of eternal boyhood and into a more authentic, meaningful life. Now that you've heard about Carl Jung's concept of the man-child and how it reflects deeper psychological forces and the path toward genuine maturity, we want to hear from you. Have you encountered the man-child archetype in your own life, or do you recognize aspects of it in yourself? How have these experiences shaped your perspective on adulthood and personal growth? Share your reflections, questions, or personal stories in the comments section below. By opening up about these experiences, we can learn from each other's journeys and continue exploring the steps toward healthier, more fulfilling lives.